É isso mesmo que vamos falar, conseguir um desenvolvimento sustentável através da tecnologia, é obviamente uma prioridade dos nossos dias. Como é que podemos aproveitar a pandemia para fazer melhor o chamado Build Back Better? Vamos então à conversa com os convidados. Convidamos para este painel, estamos à espera ainda com uma ligação internacional, mas começo já a apresentá-lo. Teremos daqui a pouco, quando a ligação permitir, Jeffrey Sachs, professor universitário, diretor do Center of Sustainability Development at Columbia University. Foi nomeado como um dos 100 líderes mundiais mais influentes pela revista Times. O The Economist classificou-o entre os 3 economistas vivos, um dos mais influentes do mundo. É também presidente da Rede de Soluções de Desenvolvimento Sustentável das Nações Unidas e está a trabalhar com o secretário-geral António Guterres. Vamos também ter, e acho que a ligação aqui já está bem, Luís Neves, CEO at Global Enabling Sustainability Initiative, organização reconhecida como líder da indústria do pensamento no campo das TIC, na sustentabilidade e contribuição positiva das tecnologias digitais. Desempenhou também papéis relevantes a nível europeu e internacional em organizações ligadas à sustentabilidade e ambiente. Luís Neves, bem-vindo, welcome.
Bem-vindo, olá.
Vamos passar para o inglês assim que tivermos Jeffrey Sachs. Eu não sei se ele já está em linha. Ainda não? Ainda não. Então, proponho o seguinte, Luís Neves, podemos começar em português e depois, quando Jeffrey Sachs se juntar a nós, veremos, então, passaremos então para o inglês. Esta é mesmo uma oportunidade, pergunto-lhe eu, de construir melhor o passado, ou seja, avançar com tecnologia, com digital, mas fazer melhor?
Eu acho que sim. Obrigado pela pergunta em primeiro lugar e obrigado também pelo convite. Eu gostava de referir que nós estamos num momento extremamente complexo. O mundo não está a andar na direção certa e nós temos que parar, refletir e ver o que é que tem de ser feito melhor. E no GSI, portanto, esta organização empresarial que eu estou a liderar, que tem uma história de 20 anos à volta das tecnologias e da sustentabilidade, temos estado exatamente a refletir no que é necessário fazer, quais é que são os passos que as empresas têm de tomar para corrigir, digamos, aquilo que eu chamo uma tendência negativa e, digamos, este caminho negativo em que o mundo está a caminhar. Nesse sentido, o que é que nós temos feito? Temos feito estudos e análises que nos permitem antecipar, digamos, os problemas e ver também quais é que são as melhores estratégias que temos de adotar. E foi isso que nós fizemos depois de um estudo feito em 2019, em que fizemos uma análise do impacto das tecnologias nos ODS, portanto, nos Objetivos do Desenvolvimento Sustentável. Este estudo concluiu duas coisas que nos obrigam a refletir. Uma é que parece evidente, as tecnologias vão ter um impacto positivo nos ODS. Vão ter um impacto positivo, nós medimos esse impacto e a conclusão foi que naquilo que nós chamamos de business as usual, vamos impactar 25% dos ODS de uma forma positiva. E nós fizemos este estudo olhando para 7 tecnologias disruptivas, como a inteligência artificial, a realidade virtual, a Internet of Things, o 5G, etc. Mas também verificámos que as tecnologias têm problemas e esses problemas têm de ser resolvidos.
Luís Neves, já vamos continuar a falar, até porque já temos o outro convidado e, portanto, assim podemos falar todos. Vou mudar então para inglês. Professor Jeffrey Sachs, welcome. It's a pleasure and an honor to talk to you. Welcome.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Perfectly. We can hear you and we can see you. Where are you? Can I ask? May I ask where are you right now?
In New York City.
In New York City.
I had computer trouble of all things, so I'm sorry to be late.
But that's okay. We are talking about technology. We are talking about technology. So we start this talk talking about to build back better. Is the pandemic an opportunity to do that in the right way?
Well, it's a requirement because the pandemic has left so many people struggling, so many people stranded. We really need to build back in an inclusive way. Those of us who most of the time are online, and I was till a moment ago, and now thankfully I'm back, have been able to weather this pandemic, generally being able to stay safer, though, of course, with all of the shocks and tragedies that have occurred, to remain at work, for kids to remain at school. Those who are not part of the digital world, however, have found themselves imperiled in the front lines of the virus itself, and with great hardships of accessing daily services that went online, of participating in society. And so I think what this pandemic has done is to expose even more dramatically than ever the digital divide and the global social divide. At the same time, it has shown that the digital technologies are the great leapfrog technologies that can close gaps, that can enable even people in remote areas to get the vital services that they need, whether it's health or education or government transfers or other services. So everything about this pandemic, in my mind, has shown that we need to be a lot bolder and a lot smarter in how we get out of this crisis. And to my mind, that means investments in three critical areas: in digital access, in the power generation and clean electricity that is needed to run a modern digital society, and in education and skills to enable everybody to participate productively in the kind of future that we're aiming for. So if we can come out of COVID with massive investments in digital access, in green renewable energy, and in not only getting kids back to school, of course, but expanding educational quality and access, I think we'll do a real service for ourselves and for our children.
You are saying we need to do that. Of course, we want to do that, but sometimes that depends on leaders, worldwide leaders. Do you think that we have the leaders that we need to achieve that goal? I'm saying this because you talk about the populism as an obstacle for this. Are we in a better world to make the change?
Well, we're in a moment of relief, at least because we got rid of the worst president we ever had in the United States, and have a very intelligent, experienced, and decent president with President Biden. That's a big hope and a big opportunity. This is a much better situation than we were in a year ago. But my country's still a bit crazy. There's no question about it. We still have one political party completely enthralled to a demagogue and a dangerous person. So like so many places around the world, we're battling for our survival, and I'm fully aware that what happens in the United States also has big impacts elsewhere. We need to get strong leaders everywhere cooperating to do the right thing. We need to put aside the conflicts that really are stoked right now, for example, between the US and China, which to my mind is a useless, dangerous diversion from what needs to be done. I was just speaking earlier today, in fact, with the New Development Bank, which is the bank created by the BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, about the need for digital expansion and exactly that topic. Well, that's great. That means that we have the chance for a global consensus on this. But to get the global consensus, we need to keep the populists away from power. They're dangerous. They're demagogic. They divide us rather than unite us. And we have to understand that at all costs, we need to avoid cold wars between China and the West, for example. That would be absurd and very dangerous. So I think your question is absolutely correct. Can we find the political will and leadership to do it? I think if we can emphasize how it's the path that is best for everybody, we have a much better chance of accomplishing it.
Professor, let me introduce you to the other guest, Luís Neves. And Luís, the same question. What are the main obstacles to this digital expansion? Are they political? Are they technical? What kind of obstacles do you have to face?
Well, first of all, let me say hello to Jeffrey. A long time that we have not speaking with each other, a very good friend. And Jeffrey, thank you so much for joining us today. Well, Jeffrey already touched the point. We need investment in infrastructure. We need to give access to people. And there is enough money to give access to people. So we have been spending much more money in the COVID recovery that we would need to provide telecommunications infrastructure and access across the world. And without access, things get complicated. So we need really to step up. We need the companies, we need the private sector, we need also the policymakers to support that investment that is necessary to provide connectivity, to get people connected, to provide the means for young people to use technology, to evolve in their education. But it's not only about education. So when we think about infrastructure and access, it's about also developing other business solutions, better health, better education, also smart solutions for business that needs to support a green recovery that is fundamental to get this world in the right path. And we have not seen that happening at the pace that we need. We still see a big digital divide. We see countries with good infrastructure progressing, and those that almost do not have anything. We have done in GSC recently a research piece of work that we call it the Digital Access Index. So we put together a huge database covering 170 countries around the world with different indicators which go from infrastructure, affordability of technology, access to internet, and so on. And what we have seen is that those countries that are really in good shape in terms of having access to telecommunications, like most of the European countries, we see huge progress in terms of their development, and they come at the top. And then you see those that almost do not have anything, really struggling to survive. So we do need policymakers, we need the private sector to step up, to correct the tremendous digital divide that we have in place. And we also need those corporations that are making, I would call it, if you allow me the word, pornographic profits, to put more money and to use that money to support those in need. So I think that's the way that needs to go.
I'm going to use your words, Luís, to talk with Jeffrey Sachs again. Jeffrey, do you think that the green and technological agendas could be matched? We are here in a technological congress, and we are talking, of course, of a sustainable planet, a sustainable life. Those both agendas can be matched. I think you are on mute right now. Nope.
Oh, no.
Oh, that's good. Now I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you. Well, I would say that the digital and the green recoveries are built on the same science, the same solid state physics, often the same manufacturing processes, and they are complementary needs. So you can't have digital without power. You can't have large cloud services without a lot of power generation. You can't have a smart renewable energy grid without a digital backbone. So building green and digital really is building a complementary set of technologies that are marching together in scientific know-how as well. They've certainly arrived at a completely practical leapfrog stage for poor countries. This should be the time for a massive build out of both solar power and digital access in Africa, for example. What is this going to take? It's going to require a lot of official financing. I'm advocating a big increase of the capital base of the multilateral development banks for the coming decade, so that African Development Bank right now, which is a pretty small player for a very big continent, instead of lending $8 or $10 billion a year, would be extending $100 billion a year. That's not even a large number when you think about the U.S. making stimulus packages of $2 trillion for 12 months. In other words, we've lost the magnitudes. We need vastly higher investments directed towards the poor countries. But at low interest rates and long-term maturities, it's prudent for those countries to borrow, and it's for the rich countries to back up that borrowing with their AAA creditworthiness, so that we can have an order of magnitude increase in the scale of financing. We talk about these, we have to put our money behind it, and my bet is on the development banks as the best place to get money channeled into development urgencies and historic opportunities.
Do you think, I hope that you are working well with our Portuguese General Secretary of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres. I hope you work well with them. My next question is about that. Do you think that the Paris Agreement and the goals of the UN in this matter for the next 10 years are realistic?
I don't know what. Oops.
Did you?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, perfectly. Did you hear my question or not?
I'm trying to find
a better spot.
Oh, my word.
That's okay. That's New York. We are used to that. Don't worry. It's a funny thing. That's the way we do the things. The pandemic showed us all the houses of all people. So now we know your place. Now you are frozen. We're trying to connect with you again. Let's go to Luis Neves. Luis, let's continue in English because Professor Sachs probably is listening us. We're trying to have another connections. I'm going to ask you, could you explain what's going to happen at the Digital Assembly and what's going to be the Digital with a Purpose Act? That's what we are talking about here.
Well, something very new and promising, I hope. I was referring previously that we need digital technologies to do two things, to help to get the world on the right pathway, as I think they will be fundamental to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. So as we did the Digital with Purpose report, we concluded two things: the positive impact and the negative impact of digital technologies. That means that although the digital industries will be providing good solutions for the world to evolve and to make progress, at the same time we are seeing more challenges taking place, and I will refer only a couple of them. Climate change, so we see our industry to continue to contribute to the rising of emissions, so we need to reduce our own footprint. There is a new area of concern which is very much related with digital trust and responsibility, so the overall issues about privacy and security, the ethical dimension of technology. So I will not go back to the Cambridge Analytica scandal or how social media was threatening the stability of a huge country with the democratic traditions like the United States during the Trump era. So we need to understand that digital technologies and advancements in technology with artificial intelligence, they are posing us challenges that we need to address. And that requires our industry to take the right steps, and that's what we are trying to do with Digital with Purpose. Digital with Purpose is a positive movement, is a movement to bring the industry together on one side to revert or to flip the negatives to the positives, and on the other side to invest in more innovation, more technology, to give access to people, to provide technology infrastructure to people, so we contribute to a better world in 2030. And so this is something that we want to put in place in Lisbon now. This will be the launch of this initiative. We have been cooperating with the Portuguese government, with the State Secretary for Digital Transition to bring this project to life. This is a very ambitious project. We set up the target that we want this to be a race to the top. We want to make this competitive. We develop the framework that helps companies to drive to the sky if they want. And we really want this movement to be serious, to be transparent. We will not tolerate any greenwashing in this movement. This is about our industry to step up, not about making promises. The world is full of promises. So every time that you have a big summit, you see many corporations saying, well, right, I will be net zero in 2030. And so this is about walking the talk.
Let's hope so, Luis. Let's hope so. We have Jeffrey back. Jeffrey, now I think it's perfect. Can you hear me now?
Great.
Okay, perfect.
I hear you well.
Yeah, we were talking about the Paris Agreement and the goals of the UN in a matter of 10 years. And my question was, is this a realistic goal?
Well, let me start with the Paris Agreement. We're, of course, way behind on climate safety. The world's temperature has warmed by 1.2 degrees Celsius compared to the pre-industrial level, and it's rising by about 0.2 degrees Celsius per decade right now, if not faster. So we easily could breach the Paris limit of 1.5 degrees Celsius unless there is a dramatic downscaling of fossil fuel use, and that means a dramatic replacement by renewable energy in the coming years. It's going to be a very close call, even if we act. Now, when it comes to the Sustainable Development Goals, it's basically the same story. We have striking goals for 2030. We lost many years, not only COVID setbacks, but I would say Trump-era setbacks as well. But for both goals, it's feasible. If the world leaders say, this is important, we can do it because of the power of both the renewables that are now at parity with fossil fuels or lower cost, and because of digital. So these two enablers make it possible, but we need a different mindset, and we need it this year. That's the goal of the COP26 in Glasgow in November, that all countries commit to net zero emissions by mid-century. If we get that in Glasgow, we have a fighting chance for success.
Aren't you afraid that now, after the pandemic, all world wants to recover, especially I'm talking about economy. And of course, the budgets are shrinking. Everybody wants to have the big boom, the golden age. So it's going to be a rush to make money quickly. My question is, aren't you afraid that these kind of things could be a huge obstacle to do the things better?
Well, we still have a lot of opportunity for investment-led growth. Real interest rates are still very low, though they're probably rising. Governments can still borrow long-term at near zero real interest rates, or even negative in the case of Europe. And so if governments say we're going to borrow for high return infrastructure investment, this is both prudent and feasible. But it's also true that, in my view, we need more government revenue, especially in low-taxed countries like my own in the United States. We do need digital taxation for the big tech giants who have not paid their fair share. We need to end the tax havens, which are an abuse on global society, because we need more government revenues in order to back large-scale public investments, and the public investments are needed to ensure universality of services. If all we cared about was the top elite, I'd say we have no problem. They're getting awfully rich and successful, but if the rest of society around is crumbling, it's not exactly the future that we're trying to build. So we can borrow and should at low long-term interest rates, and we should raise globally the tax revenues that are needed for a fair and inclusive society. Then I think we have the means to get this done.
Professor, in a quick answer, are you optimistic or caution optimistic about what's going to happen?
Well, you can't do anything in the world without some caution because we've got a lot of strange twists and turns. But I'd say cautiously optimistic because we have the chance to do things. And I think what Luis is doing at Jesse is extremely important. If this industry comes forward with real plans that says, here's how we can do it, here is the added financing we need, here is the partnership we need to help all the rest of us understand the practicalities of what to do, we're going to make some breakthroughs.
Luis, we have 2 minutes, so the same question. Are you optimistic about the future, because we are looking into the future right now, or caution optimistic?
Well, by definition, I'm not optimistic, and that's what drives me, and that's what really keeps me going. We need this world to be different. We have a responsibility, a collective responsibility to make this world a better place. Jeffrey highlighted the problems that we are facing, and in my role as the CEO of Jesse, together with the companies, the industry, I really want to push a positive agenda to make this world a better place in 2030.
Luis Neves, Professor Jeffrey Sachs, it was a really pleasure to talk to you, and let's hope that the future is going to be better. See you next time,
Wonderful.
Both of you. Thank you, it was a pleasure.
Thank you so
Thanks
much.
so much.
Bye, Jeff.
Bye-bye.
E agora vamos caminhar para o final desta manhã de trabalhos.
É verdade, vamos caminhar para o fim desta manhã de trabalhos, este segundo dia do Congresso da APDC. Uma manhã bastante produtiva, já que falámos de inúmeras temáticas, tendo em conta esta aceleração do digital, falámos do futuro, do setor automóvel, da energia. Tivemos aqui a notícia da parte da REN, que está em estudo a implementação, em breve, num espaço de 3 anos, de uma grande rede para carregamentos muito mais rápidos, em 10, 20 minutos, portanto é uma boa notícia para quem opta pelos carros elétricos e pelos vistos, esse é o futuro. Mas à tarde...
E temos que ir
João,
embora,
é
temos que ir embora porque temos muito para ver e ouvir da parte da tarde. Não se esqueça, nesta conferência pode acompanhar sempre através da app, em casa, no carro, onde quer que esteja, onde esteja uma plataforma, pode colocar questões e já sabe, contamos consigo dentro de 1 hora. Até já.
Até já.